Hi, me again, Crystal from Black Unicorn Merchandising. I realized that one question that comes up a lot in my consultations is manufacturing domestically versus manufacturing overseas. This is really not something I could cover in detail in an FAQ video, so I decided to do a separate video just to go over the benefits and the drawbacks, the pros and cons of doing domestic versus overseas manufacturing. So let's dig in. If you see me looking away from the camera, it's not that I lost interest. I'm looking at my notes. This is quite complicated, and I really want to make sure to convey all of the pros and cons from my perspective so that you can make the right decision for you. So Black Unicorn Merchandising in general, mainly we focus on overseas development and manufacturing. I will first go into why that is by explaining the pros and cons. Then we'll talk about the pros and cons of doing your apparel domestically. Okay, so if you were to go overseas, if you have your tech pack ready, you have your spec, and you've already done your vetting to make sure that the factory is capable of making your product, it's literally that simple. You hand over the tech pack, you hand over the art files, you do a little talking back and forth, maybe on WhatsApp or WeChat, whatever, and they just go to work. They usually already have the infrastructure or the partnerships to take your tech pack and disseminate that information to all the proper channels. They already have relationships with fabric mills. They already have relationships with trims vendors. They usually have a sample room within their facility. So it's as simple as sending an email with your tech pack and all of your information, and they just get to work. And several weeks later, you have your first sample. So that's wonderful. It's usually a pretty easy process getting that first sample. Now let's talk about some of the drawbacks of doing overseas manufacturing. There is going to be a little bit of a language barrier. Not always. Sometimes they have English-speaking people in their facility to assist with the communication. Sometimes though, there isn't that extra layer in place. So that can be a drawback. Another thing is they're pretty far away. So you are putting your trust in this factory, and sometimes that doesn't really pan out. Every now and then you encounter a factory that's a little shady. They might take your money and make a shoddy product. They might take your money and make nothing. But that's not always the case. I'd say 1 in every 5 instances is like that, which is why you have to really do the work to make sure that you found a good factory before you even start the process, before you pay a dime. Logistics can be an issue. You're going to be paying more for packages. You're going to be shipping packages from your house or your office to the factory overseas. That's going to cost money, and overseas packages are not cheap. It's also a little too far away to visit. So if you really want to see what the inside of the factory looks like, you're going to have to schedule a virtual consultation or a virtual tour of that factory. And red flag, if they do not give you a virtual tour of that factory, don't move forward with them. It might be an agent that is working with the factory, which means you're going to have to pay him on top of the factory fees. And if they won't give you that virtual tour, sometimes it means that they are not capable of doing what they promise that they can do. Because you can say anything in an email, right? But that virtual tour is really going to give you the visibility to see if they are who they say they are. Let's see here. One of the other pros that I forgot to mention is that you're going to have significantly more options when it comes to the array of products that you can make overseas. It's a little more limited in the States in terms of, like, if you want to do PVC coated fabric in a specific color, or if you want to do a bucket bag made out of a specific material. Overseas, they have access to more supplies, which means you have access to, I guess, a wider range of categories. So those are the benefits and drawbacks of sampling. You also have to keep in mind that you really want to sample where your order goes. And overseas manufacturing means higher MOQs. In the past, MOQ, or minimum order quantity, meant that you had to place an order for 1,500 pieces and upwards from that number. Now you can get 200 pieces, 300 pieces of your design, which is considered low MOQ, but for a new brand, 200 pieces of one color of something is a lot to bite off. So that's something to consider when going overseas versus domestically. Okay, let's talk about domestic manufacturing. So you have pros and cons of domestic manufacturing as well. I'm just going to go through bullet point by bullet point. Pros of domestic manufacturing: faster turnaround time. If you live in the States and you are sampling just a few states away, it's going to take significantly less time to get your first package because it doesn't have quite as far to travel. You are going to be skipping all of the shipping fees and especially when it comes to manufacturing, you're not gonna have to do with importation, duties, freight from the port to your house or your warehouse or whatever. So you get to skip that with domestic manufacturing and sampling. But it's not always, sunshine and lollipops. Domestic manufacturing is more expensive. We pay our workers more because our cost of living is more. So you're going to eat that cost and your end customer is going to eat that cost. So that's something to consider. It's usually about 3 times higher. If I can get a pair of leggings overseas made for $10, you're gonna pay $30 for that same pair of leggings here. And that's just the reality of it. You don't have to worry about, duties. Obviously, there's still going to be taxes involved, but you're not going to have to worry about specifically duties to import it. And let's see, product types, much more limited. Here in the States, you can get a pair of leggings, you can get a pair of joggers, a sweatshirt, whatever. But the really specialty stuff, like if you're a Carhartt and you're trying to do like some hunting gear and you really need to have special coating, you need it to be a special type of fabric, all that, you really have to go overseas to get that done. Or if you get it done here, it's a lot of importing all of the things you need, and that's expensive and it's time consuming, and it's not always done the best because we're not set up to do it here. We don't have the expertise here. We don't have the sewers here that are used to sewing that type of product. So you might go several rounds of sampling before you get it right. And lastly, most places here are just not set up to do your production from start to finish. You're gonna have to source the fabric mill. You're gonna have to source a pattern maker. You might even have to source somebody to cut it, bundle it, and send it to the factory. Most factories here have sewers on the floor. It's usually just a handful of sewers, so they're not going to be whizzing through your production like overseas. Overseas, they may have like 200 sewers on the floor, and they're just going to be blowing through your manufacturing. But here, they might have 5 to 10 sewers. It's going to take longer, it's going to cost more because it takes longer, and because we pay our sewers more. So overall, domestic manufacturing is great if you need something fast and you need to be able to have that confidence that you can pop up in that factory, hop on a plane and just pop up at any point and know that you're going to be able to get eyes on your product. But it's not great if you're really trying to be cost efficient, if you're really trying to be if you're really trying to make something special. That just kind of needs to be done overseas. So that's the benefits and the drawbacks of both. And if you want more information, obviously this is just, like I said, bullet pointed, very quick overview of the process. If you want more information, definitely sign up for a consultation. We can talk about your project. We can talk about what's doable here, what we have to do overseas, and find the right fit for you and your company and your brand. If you're interested in that consultation, please head over to blackunicornmerch.com, fill out the questionnaire, and someone from my team will be in contact to schedule your complimentary consultation. Talk to you soon. Bye.